Hello, everyone. It is time for Wednesday yin class. It's the once a week 60-minute low, slow yoga class that I've been offering this summer or starting to offer. So I hope you'll join me. You'll need just a couple of things that you probably have in your own home: a floor, um, maybe a blanket or some towels, a couple of them, especially if you don't have yoga blocks. A little bit more obscure in some homes. If you don't have yoga blocks, no problem at all. Just get a few extra towels that you can roll up and use as props. If you have something like a bolster, whether it's a mini one or a larger one, you might want to have that at hand too. Okay, so we'll start our practice today with some breath work. I'm going to sit up on my blanket just to get nice and comfortable. And you can sit with crossed legs, unless that doesn't feel good for you, in which case you can sit on your heels or even on a low stool or some other thing that allows you to sit up nice and tall. All righty. So in fact, I'm going to put little blocks under my knees so that my hips aren't in any strain. Take a deep breath and then let it all go. And maybe close the eyes or lower the gaze. If your eyes are open, just relax their focus. Maybe rest your hands to your knees, your thighs, palms up or down, whatever helps the shoulders to feel open and relaxed. And we just take some long, slow breaths in and release the exhale. A no effort proposition, just a pleasant softening. Do that a couple of times. Bring your focus to the breath and to physical sensation. Hmm. Take a little inventory of the muscles and the joints and where your head is at. And for the next little while here, leave the morning behind you. Let the remainder of the day take care of itself as it happens. And just be present in this moment. Breath in and breath out in that regular rhythm, continuous from our first day to our last. Sitting up tall, not as a muscular exercise or a postural formality, but as a way of opening our spine, our trunk, our internal spaces to the complete flow of breath. So neither the inhale or exhale gets cut off at the neck or gets stuck in the chest. Or we don't have a fold at the bottom of the ribs or top of the pelvis. We just have a long line resting gently in space, breath traveling our length. We're going to keep our breathing, our pranayama, very simple today, evening the flow of inhale and exhale, samavriti. And as we track the breath mindfully, you might find an intention building, an awareness of something that's important to you, something that you want to focus on or dedicate your practice to in this next hour. Hold that thought steadily but lightly. And as the breath fills and empties. 2 more cycles of inhales and exhales, consciously but lightly holding that intention. Even and regular through the flow of your breath. And then feel a subtle release. Allow the breathing to become a little bit unconscious for a moment or two. Inhales and exhales, normalizing. With eyes open or closed, roll one ear toward one shoulder. And then sweep the head down through center, chin dropping toward the chest. Other ear circling toward the other shoulder. We often begin classes this way. If you find this motion of the head makes you dizzy, go ahead and open the eyes. Do that another time to each side. Allow the chest to move, softening the heart space in front, but also in back between your shoulder blades. Mm. Return down through a forward curve very gently. And then from that centered place, roll it up and stretch the legs out in front of you. Odds are you're going to want to remain up on whatever you're sitting on. And if you find that stretching the legs out in front actually tends to push you back or tilt your pelvis behind you, then go ahead and sit a little higher, maybe doubling up your blanket. We're going to bring the inner edges of the feet lightly together, allowing for any space that you might need for hip tightness. And the knees gently stretched. Here too, you can allow a little bit of slack as we approach our first posture, our forward fold. I'm going to scooch back a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. From that nice upright stance or posture of the spine, we take a little bit of a tilt forward, front of the pelvis coming toward the front of the thighs. Everyone's going to have a natural stopping point here. When you reach yours, stop. And then allow from the base of the pelvis upward through the crown of the head, a curve to build as the torso softens forward over the legs. Now, wherever you land, wherever your stopping point here is, go ahead and support. You might just gently rest the forehead and the fingertips. If you have blocks or a bolster, you can form a little platform for the forehead. And we stay for a few minutes. The idea here is to little by little eliminate all effort in this posture and allow the positioning of the body along with the weight in gravity to start to work deeply into the joints, the muscles, the connective tissue. Maybe returning to some of Riti or even breath. Certainly feeling that the breath continues without pause. Allow the back of the body to expand a little bit with each inhale and to open a little bit, and then to soften on each exhale. Here too, though, look for places where the breath might get stuck or cut off. Make sure that there's no disconnect at the base of the skull or base of the neck, and that your chest still feels open. Right, the shoulders wide, even in a curve forward. Notice if your body weight is resting equally in the base of the pelvis and the back of the legs. If you're familiar with Ujjayi breathing, that little bit of activation of muscles in the base of the throat, and the ones that you use to whisper with, If you're familiar with that, you can add that to your breath work as you hold these long postures. Give yourself an auditory sense or quality to your breathing that helps you remain connected to your physical self. After a couple of minutes in any given posture, I find, especially with the hips, might be the same for you, there's usually a little bit of a release that allows you to adjust or deepen or, change it up a little bit so that the sensation you get from the posture remains dynamic, even though the posture itself is quiet. Yeah. So maybe a lower or deeper position in your forward curve or fold. Maybe simply an ability to rebalance. And we're here for another minute. Let's have three more exhales in our forward fold in our caterpillar. Yin postures sometimes have kind of whimsical names. Well, most times. Deep work, but lighthearted. Toward the end of your last exhale, go ahead and place your hands to ground and push off a little through the strength of your arms as you roll up, stacking your spine. Hmm. Once you're all the way up, tilt one ear toward one shoulder. Ooh, that side of my neck is tight. Bring head up to square and tilt the other ear to the other shoulder. Do that another time to each side. Start with the neck. You can tilt one ear toward one shoulder. And as you support with the same sided hand, if you like, you can take that into a little bit of a side bend. Coming up as you push off. And of course, do the other side as well. When you've returned to upright, um, let's go ahead and bend the right knee. Keep the left leg long and put the sole of the right foot to the floor. I'm going to take just a little bit of a twist. It will be a shorter posture, no less important though. So we retain the balance over the pelvis and start to turn from the waist toward this bent knee, this right side. Left side of the rib cage coming toward the right inner thigh as you remain upright in your spine. Now, here it can be nice just to hook the elbow around the knee. Right? We can use a little bit of biceps strength to help assist the twist or to hold it. And then take the right hand a little bit behind. Once you've established your twist, have a big breath in and then exhale in a sigh. Sometimes twists really can be tension builders. We're trying to twist so hard, so hard. Don't do that. Get where you need to be and then, right, it felt pretty good. And then as you're able, continue turning the head to look past the back shoulder. Here too, if you like to add a little bit of stretch for the side of the neck, because we're twisting to the right, you can let the right ear drop down to the right shoulder, left cheekbone lifting. Allow the right shoulder blade to have weight down onto the ribs, gently, not letting it pull up into the neck or narrow inward toward the center of the chest. 3 more rounds of breath here. Again, a relatively short posture. When you release posture, you want to bring the head to a neutral position. So lifting it out of tilt and returning it from twist or rotation before releasing the larger rotation in the lower part of the spine. Send both feet out in front. And then, you can't see my toes, but I'm going to pretend my hands are my toes. Point the toes away. Feel your weight rocking forward. Pull the toes back. So feel this little shifting forward and back through the hips as you rock forward and back over the base of the heels. Hmm. And then sitting nice and tall. Again, these are my feet. Swish your toes side to side, both in the same direction, a little bit of rolling to each side. When you've done that an equal number of times, we're going to go into the other side. So nice and tall and balanced, bend the left knee and pull the foot in a little bit so the sole of the foot is flat on the ground. I'm trying to retain your balance in the way that you're sitting. Nice and tall, begin to turn from the waist toward the left this time. And when you've got it, you can hook the knee with your elbow if that feels good. Right. And place left hand behind. Notice if you're leaning right or left and eliminate that as you reach the spine directly up and down. And when you've got the rotation you want to begin with, have that inhale and exhale, sighing the tension out of the posture. If you'd like to, if you're able to, continue turning the head. And this time, if you want to add a stretch for the right side of the neck, I'm going to drop that left ear down, lifting right cheekbone without elevating the shoulder. Still feeling continuity in the spine from the base of your spine all the way up through the crown. 3 more rounds of breath. If the head is tilted, bring it up to square, return from twist in the neck, and return from twist in the spine. Both legs go long again. All right, and this time we pedal the feet. One toes, a set of toes pulls back, the other points, and then go the other way. So now we've got this little flossing forward and back through the pelvic calves. A little bit of a twist in the waist here as well. Okay, so we're going to take another forward fold. Um, let's go ahead and maybe find additional blankets or blocks. It'll be butterfly. So I'll move back a smidge. We're going to have the soles of our feet together. Yeah, I know you can't quite see my toes. And our knees open with the heels relatively close to your seat. Yeah. Now, if your knees are lifted up very high and that doesn't feel good, right, you can put extra blocks or blankets, right, at some point under the outer knees or thighs to support their weight and eliminate a lot of the drag on the hips. Right. So you do what you need to do. I'm going to just stick with this. That feels pretty good. Okay. And just like our first forward fold, our caterpillar, we're going to want to tilt the front of the pelvis forward toward the legs or toward the space between the hips in this case. When you are at that natural limit and you start to feel a sort of stretching or warming or tractioning through the hip joints, then again, allow your spine to bend forward along its length. Wherever you land, you support. Right. So, forehead to fingertips, elbows to shins or ankles. Please don't put your elbows on your knees unless your knees are supported. Right. And we just hang out here for a little while. Because we're in a lateral rotation of the femurs, of the thigh bones and the hips, you're going to stretch slightly different muscles than we did in our initial fold. Right. So in caterpillar, it's easy to get sensation in the hamstrings as well. This usually doesn't have a lot going on in the back of the thighs per se, but an awful lot goes on in the hip muscles, the outer glutes, right? The bottom of the glutes. So look for sensation in those areas for warm, steady, not quite painful stretch, but you definitely want to feel something going on there. If you find that you're unable to maintain a smooth, even breath pattern, right, or you get sort of prickly sensation or hot or cold or even numbing, you want to back out a little bit. It's possible to, compress the hips in a way that's not healthy or to put a little bit too much um, strain into the low back as you stretch forward. And so while we want to stretch connective tissue, we also want to be respectful to our structure. And you can take a little inventory here as well. Start with the breath. If you've got that continuous flow of breath and it has access to all the spaces along your spine, across your hips, through your shoulders, down your arms and legs, then you can ask yourself if you're in the place and posture where you want to work for this last minute. You might want to deepen, you might want to back out, you might want to adjust how your weight is sitting, and then reassess. Does the breath have access to essentially everywhere? Acknowledging that the lungs are in your chest. But I think you know what I mean. Am I staying with the posture? Am I present in this moment in my body rather than drifting off to, I don't know, anticipation of what's next or referring to the morning? Yoga might be one of the only activities, well, one of the few activities where you're actually encouraged to not multitask. You don't have to consider all the things that you might be doing to add efficiency to your practice, to add value. Instead, yoga is often a practice of minimalizing, of paring away, and of finding the essence of the thing you're doing right here, right now. Please take 2 more rounds of breath. Place hands to ground and again push off of the floor. Help yourself up a little bit at a time. And use your hands to bring the soles of your feet to the floor. Widen the stance on the floor. Keep your knees bent. And then we just take a little bit of a drop of the knees to one side and then the other. Right, do that a second time. Good. And then shake your legs out long. All right, we're going to go ahead and lie down on the floor. So you might need to move your props so that they're within reach. Um, and if you don't have a bolster or blocks, you can take a blanket. And I'm going to show you with a blanket what we can do for our lying down, our supine position. I'm going to take a little bit of extension in the area sort of under the armpits, right? So mid chest area, opening up here. So classic heart opener. All right. Um, Depending on whether you have a large or small frame, right? Or a lighter or a tighter or looser set of joints, you're going to want to adjust your height of bolster or blanket or towel accordingly. All right. So I'm going to start there, and odds are I'll have to change mine around too. You're going to want to scooch until you feel like the bolster is approximately across the bottom of the shoulder blades, again, under the armpit area. And then supporting the head, right, and keeping your knees bent at first. You can allow yourself to kind of ease back, right? I've found that, okay, so I want to move down a little bit to get that in the right spot. We want to feel from between the center of the pecs, the breastbone upward, under the little notch, little sternal notch here between the collarbones, really spreading lengthwise as we ease the head back. Now, if you've eased back and your head is floating and you really don't want to go further, then you want to lower your bolster down. If you're fine, you stay. If you want a little higher, of course, you know what to do. Right, so mine's a little crooked, I'm a scooch. And then lie here for a moment, allowing the breath to sort of normalize and equalize through the front of the body. And it can take a couple rounds of breath to feel like you can truly let go into this admittedly kind of an oddball position. You want to feel that the throat is open. And if you like, as you become comfortable here, you can slide the legs down and open more through the front of the hips as well. Let the legs go where they go. They don't have to remain together or be strictly parallel. And if you have room for one more thing, you might also consider reaching the arms back. I like to hold elbows or one hand in the other just to stabilize the shoulder extension. Right. And rest your hands behind you. All right, so we've got this real opener for the front of the body. Feel that the hips are nice and heavy into the ground, along with the feet or the legs. And the head has the ability to fall back without creasing the base of your neck. And sometimes reaching the arms behind here actually assists with that opening through the base of the neck. It can move your shoulder blades out of the way. We're here for a little while, so if you find that after a time you do get a little bit of numbing or a little bit of not quite right in the shoulders, you move your arms a little bit. Same thing with the lower back. Of course, you can always rebend your legs. You can always reposition the support under your upper back. You just stay and breathe. And we have about a minute more holding this extension. If you struggle a little bit with tension in the upper body, in the neck, the shoulder, the jaw area, never hurts to open and close your mouth very slowly and gently a couple of times and relieve strain there. Always be sure that you're able to take full deep breaths in, belly and chest rising and falling with the flow of breath. And with the security of ground underneath your center, under your legs, let your spine gradually fall back. Not necessary to hold yourself in space in any sense. 3 more breath cycles. So we're going to go ahead and let this posture go. I suggest putting your feet flat to the ground, so bending one knee and then the other. And then you can either roll off to the side to get the blanket out from underneath, or you can just kind of scooch. Well, I'm going to scooch and get the blanket out from underneath your spine and just lie flat for a moment. You can re-extend the legs along the ground if you like. Mm. We'll take a side bend here on the ground. It's called banana asana. And so we've already introduced a lot of nice openness into the upper body. It should make it a little easier to lie flat, like a flat banana. From this centered position, we're going to keep our pelvis where it is and just walk the legs a little bit off to the right until you feel a stretch in the outer part of your left hip and probably down into the IT band, right? If you've got a lot of tone or tightness there. Once you're there, you want to keep both hips flat. So that means you can cross your ankles if you need to glue one side down a little bit more securely. And then again, not moving the pelvis, we're going to bend from the waist toward the right as well. So we make this kind of Ardha Chandrasana shape, this half moon shape along the ground. Both shoulders are back, the gaze is forward toward the ceiling, the pupils centered, and then you're welcome to close the eyes. Now, here too, you can extend the arms back, although we've just spent a fair amount of time with the arms extended back. So you might just want to rest them down by your sides or maybe only lift the left arm back. Make sure that the stretch you felt building in the outer side of the left hip and IT band, make sure that stretch continues up into the side of the left waist, the left ribs. You're here for about a minute. Sometimes reaching that right arm down, the right arm in this case, can help to take that right shoulder blade out of the way of the neck. Feel continuous in the side curve. And make sure you haven't just hinged at a couple of especially bendy parts in your body. Smooth it out. Distribute the stretch and the opening. Two more exhales. If your arms are overhead, go ahead and bring them down and move the upper half of you back to a centered position on the mat. Mm. Uncross your ankles if they're crossed, shuffle your feet back, and pull your knees in towards your chest, hugging both knees in, both feet side by side. Ooh. We're going to put the left foot on the floor and take a half happy baby with the right leg. So, and if you can't reach your foot or your big toe, you can always hold on to the back of your thigh or your calf with your right hand. We're going to open that right leg out to the side a little bit so that the inner thigh frames the ribs. And then just lift the sole of the foot until it's more or less parallel with the ceiling. And that's a goal. That's where you're aiming. Now, once you're there, you're welcome to restretch that left leg. Now, in a parallel way, right, we're opening the front of this hip, the front of the left hip, the back of the right, and breathing. A couple of shorter postures here with banana asana and half happy baby. Two more exhales. After that last exhale, allow this right foot to drop a little in. We'll keep the knee bent, and we're going to take a twist. So, a couple of notes before we move into the twist. We have our left leg long, although I'll give modifications for that in a moment. We're going to take the right leg across to the left side, allowing the right hip to roll off the mat as we twist at the waist. If that right shoulder starts to lift away from ground, go ahead and wedge a little layer of blanket or something underneath it so that it has some ground in essence to relax back into. So with everything set for that if necessary, and maybe a block or something nearby for support for this right knee, we start our twist, guiding the leg across the body, allowing the pelvis to roll, keeping the right shoulder back, and again, padding underneath if necessary. We find our stopping point, maybe propping. Mhm. And if you like to continue exploring stretch through the front of that, in this case, bottom hip, your left hip, and you can grab your foot, can bend the bottom leg, grab the foot with your right hand, and gently draw a thigh bone back to continue opening up the quads, specifically along with the hip flexors. Okay, so that's a version you could do. Nothing says you have to bend the bottom leg and grab the foot. Although sometimes bending the bottom leg can put a little bit of ease into the low back. Right. If you bring the knee up in front of you. If your right shoulder is back and resting on something and the neck allows it, go ahead and turn the head to the right as well, kind of completing the spiral through the body. We hang out here for a little bit and breathe. Smooth quality of breath, attentive but relaxed quality of awareness. We have about a minute more. Make sure that your right hip isn't starting to crunch up into the side of the waist. Feel a settling quality as the work of the muscles lets go and the weight of your body releases to ground. Two more breaths in and out. Now, as you release posture, if you've got hold of your bottom foot, first let that go. Bring the head back to square with the shoulders and the chest. Right. And then bring that right hip back to the mat, guiding the leg in place. Both knees bend for a moment until you can center on the mat, and then both legs stretch. And then you take your time doing that, breathing the whole way. Stretch out nice and long on the mat. Go ahead and turn the head right and left, and then nod it up and down. And we'll get ready to do that whole last cycle of postures on the second side, beginning with Banana Asana, possibly the silliest name for a posture ever. Laying down flat on the mat, stretching out long left and right. Keep your pelvis centered and start to walk your feet off to the left. That should create a stretching in the outer right hip, the outer IT band. And once you're there, of course, square the hips to the ground. If you need to cross the ankles, that's what you do. Settled through the lower body, begin to bend leftwards through the waist, shuffling the shoulders and the head off to the left side as you open the right half of the body. Right, from that stretch in the outer hip and thigh all the way up into the waist, maybe into the shoulder. You find the position of the arm, the right arm that you want to use. Well, both arms really. Maybe keeping the left one down this time. With the shoulders and the hips flat to the mat and the head square, continuous through the curve of your spine. Allow the eyes to gently close and to soften. Not sleeping, not shavasana yet, but relaxing into posture. Breath moving through that right side in particular. Feel the inhales expanding the right side of the ribs and the waist. Get a sense of where your tailbone is, where the back of the head is, and smooth out the curve between those 2 points, feeling the continuation of that curve down through the legs. 3 more rounds of breath in your side bend, softening the lower back, releasing the front of the hips. As you release posture, make sure you bring the arms down first. Return the upper body to center, just kind of slowly shuffling over, and the feet and legs as well. Hmm. Bend your knees, put your feet flat to the mat, and then go ahead and hug the knees in and just roll a little left and right. Right, feel yourself centering here. We are, of course, preparing for happy baby on that left side. When you've reorganized on the mat, put your right foot down, keep the knee bent, and then find your hold on this left side, holding the outer blade of the foot, the big toe, the calf, the thigh, and open the leg a little bit away from the midline, making space here. When you've got that, lift the sole of the foot to parallel or parallel-ish with the ceiling, keeping the pelvis balanced, the shoulders balanced. Oh, I'm a little bit of a cheater here today. When you've got that, mm, there we go. Then you can slide the right leg long and continue into the front of the hip opener here. This does require a little bit of effort through the side, the arm that's holding on to your half happy baby leg. Make sure that any effort there is mostly restricted to like the biceps or the grip strength, the forearm, and doesn't travel up into the neck or into any sort of gripping of the shoulder. We have a couple more rounds of breath here. And you can move the leg around a little bit as the hip begins to sort of settle. One more exhale. And then begin to soften this half happy baby angle at the knee, letting the left foot fall a little bit, the hip relax a little bit. If you have a blanket that you've used under the first side for your shoulder, move it to the second side. If you have a block or something that you've used to support the knee and twist, you want to shift sides there as well. And then we guide that left leg across to the right side, rolling the left hip off the mat as we twist from the waist. Find where you can go, right? Prop the weight of that leg. If you need something under the shoulder, wedge it there. And if you like the additional stretch of bending bottom knee and holding onto the foot, tractioning back, you can take that too. Not allowing the twist to build tension in the body. Maybe take a breath in and sigh the exhale out a time or two. Length through the top side of the waist, through the crest of the left hip. And I didn't mention it, but of course the head can turn to the left as well and complete the spiral that we've made in posture. We've got just about a minute more. Quiet and attentive. 3 more rounds of inhales and exhales. Relax behind the back of your heart. Release that coiled tension in the base of your spine. One more breath in and out. If you've got hold of the bottom foot, release it. Bring your head slowly to square. And then release the larger twist, the left leg coming back to square, the left hip to the mat. Put the foot on the ground and bend both knees. Ah. Here, one last thing. You can take your blanket and roll it up again, or use a yoga block if you have access to it. And this time we put that blanket under the back of the hips. So I'm going to lift your hips from the mat and find a place where you feel like the sacrum and the juncture with the lumbar spine is supported. So not introducing a crease here. We've got support for the posture of the low spine, for the weight of the pelvis, and we have a little bit of an inversion in the body. Ooh. Now you can keep your knees bent, your feet grounded. Or if you prefer, you can stretch both legs out long. Whatever you do, let's let it be a symmetrical or bilateral, right, type of movement or posture so that we end in a balanced position before Shavasana. Feel the tension just seeping out of the body into ground as the breath moves through your joints, your pores, your muscles. Just a half minute to go. A final inhale and exhale. And then you'll bend your knees if they're straight and Put your feet on the ground so you can lift your hips up and get whatever's underneath out of the way. Sigh as the hips descend toward the earth. If it feels nice to you, you can give yourself a little hug in and one final little rock side to side or a circle in each direction. We're moving now towards Shavasana. So, in this last little interval before final posture, right? Anything you want to do, you can stretch your legs up, right? You can take a full happy baby. When you're ready, you let that go, not holding those postures or those positions for very long. We find Shavasana. And for Shavasana, you can take the classic version with the legs straight if you like. You can keep your knees bent and prop the inner part of the knees against each other. Or you can go the other way, soles of the feet together and let the knees fall wide. Basically, find that place that lets your hips, your legs, your pelvis, your spine, your chest, everything just fall back and feel not only pleasantly heavy, but nice and open. Close the eyes. And in that open position, we just take a couple of minutes to breathe. Feel any residual tension leaving the corners of your eyes and your mouth. Feel the skin softening over your cheekbones and across your forehead. Scalp softening under your ears, through the back of your head, and down your neck, across your shoulders. Heart melting as the chest rises and falls with the breath. You might feel the beating of your heart deep and safe in the center of your chest. The long stretch of your rib cage expanding and softening with the breath. The belly rising and falling. Center resting firmly into ground without any effort. Low back releasing, the length of your spine soft and open. In silence, we breathe here for another minute. As we finish our formal class here, get a sense of that flow of consciousness into body and body into consciousness, that interplay of presence that aligns with the breath, that is available to you anytime. You are, of course, welcome to stay here for as long as you like, continuing Shavasana, maybe continuing into a meditation. As for me, I'm going to end class now. Thank you so much for checking in and trying it out. And I hope to see you next time. Um,